Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's February 5th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and pretty good trading day. There's not a lot of trades today, but there were some good trades. There were a couple here that you might have caught a runner on. Somebody asked me today, so I'll go over that real quick. When do you want to try to get runners? And when it's like this right here, even though this is a good trend up, when it's going sideways like this is where you forget about runners. The only time you might try to catch a runner on a little failed break higher or failed break lower, and since the trend was going up, you either failed break lower, and this being right off a key entry point, this is the kind of place you might go for a runner, and you likely probably would have got a runner on this. Actually, you probably wouldn't have because I missed this bar coming back right here. So you probably wouldn't even got a runner there. But that's the kind of place you want to look for one if there's a range. Most of the time you just want to stay, you want to forget about runners. When it's trending like this, coming down pretty strongly, that's when you look for runners. And you would have got a runner like right here. You could have had an easy runner. You really didn't get an entry here. Then going up right here, you would have had a nice runner. And you might try to get a runner here and you get stopped out, and then you're not going to get a runner every time. So the key is if you're going to go for runners, go for one every time when it's trending. Don't just try to, if you try to pick and choose, you'll never get it right. Every time you decide not to go, that's when you'll get a runner. And then when you decide to get one, you'll get stopped out. So you got to do whatever you're going to do, you got to do it consistently. But what I recommend, is kind of my rule, is that when we're going sideways like this, the only way I'm going to try to go for a runner is on a failed breakout, because what'll happen is you'll catch an important low for the day in a lot of cases. Like right here, early this morning, that was an important low because we went higher until almost an hour and a half more. So that would have been an important low, and that's the kind of place a lot of times. And a lot of times what you'll see is you'll see a big failed break here, and then it'll take off, and it might take off, and that's the low for the day. So that's what you really want to try to catch. It didn't work out that this was a major low for the day, but at this point it was, we didn't go lower than that. We went higher for a solid hour and a half after that. So but some days you'll see that happen. It'll be a range day, and you'll see that failed break like that lower, and you catch it, and and that's the low of the day, and you catch an easy runner, and prices are 20 points higher later in the day. So that's the idea behind that. So generally, I don't try to catch runners when it's tight like this unless you get a little failed break lower. Like right here, I would have tried to catch a runner. I'll just tell you, that's what I would have tried to do there. Um, Coming down, I would have tried to catch a runner off one of these, off this main key entry point here as well. So, but anyway, while I was on that subject, I thought I'd talk about that. But let's talk about the trades. There's not many today, so it's not going to take long, but there were some pretty good trades today. You had to be patient today because 7 o'clock was right in here in this little congestion area here. And so you had to be a little patient there. But notice we kind of pushed up, pulled back, and we bounced a couple more times, and we pushed up again. And then we finally got a little support there. And I like this one just because you got a new low here. This swing is lower than that one. It's a double bottom, even if you count that one. So there's a first entry, then you push through, you pull back. There's a second entry short that fails, and this kind of acts as support here now. So I kind of like trying to grab that one because we traded up into this. So the odds are we're going to at least try to push higher. And what I'd be looking for is a measured move. So measure this first move. And then coming out of there, I'd probably just measure from there, right that spot right there. And you can see that gets us, I believe that's pretty much a perfect measured move. And you can see it right there. We might have missed a measured move by a tick right there, one tick. So that would have been a great target for you. And notice how, generally what you'll notice is if the first leg is a real strong leg that moves up like that, the next one's going to be choppier. And if the first one's real choppy, the next one might be real fast. So that happens a lot. So just be aware of that. But that turned out to be a nice trade. It's right into those highs, so it's, you kind of got to be a little bit concerned about it, but because it's a little bit of a trap and it does act as support, that's the reason I like that one. And this has been a strong trend up too. So there's another clue here. Notice how each one of these swings is kind of making a higher swing or an equal swing. And notice how the closes are getting a little higher. That's still even though we're going sideways right there and in a little range, then you got to be careful inside that range. That's still making higher highs and higher lows. And eventually it's probably going to break through there. And when you trade into a range, usually you're going to when you break out and you're successful, it's going to be the same direction you traded in. So we traded up into this little range, so the odds are we're going to be successful trading out. Now, nothing's 100% in trading, but that's generally the standard of what you can expect. And if you play that rule, you'll be right 80 or 90% of the time, probably. So, and that's what we want. So keep that in mind. Let me back out a little more here. I got that a little tight. So we ran up here and we're still making higher highs and higher lows, and then we start going sideways again. But really what we're doing is we're just moving back to the original trend line. And this is a good sign that the market might be still a little strong because we never really trade down, we just trade sideways. So that's a good indication that, hey, we're probably going to continue up a little more. So just be watching for that. Notice we're going sideways here, and there's an entry right here. Let me explain this one. We made this low here, then we tested it once, we tested it twice. Generally, I would tell you you'd want to wait on a little better entry, but notice what it did here. It bounced right off that same low, and then it bounced again, and it gave you a bullish bar. Then it tried to go lower again. So this is really, even though it didn't break, I would have preferred it break lower there. It didn't, but that just shows you that support's strong. And so the odds are we're probably going to go higher. So when it broke higher above, and then we tried to go up again, and if it, so you got all these little matching highs here on a correction. So, and notice how this is held all the way across here. And this is right at the EMA. So there's a good chance we're going to push up one more time, at least back up into test these highs. And so I like that one. I made it green because it's not a perfect setup. But if you've been watching price action a while and you saw this, you notice that we traded down and then we traded up and then we traded back down. So really you got a little double test right there. Actually, you tested it 3 times because this bar tested that low as well. So that's like coming back again after leaving and testing it again, which is what you really prefer. And then it went higher. So I like that one. And then finally we push through, pull back, and this almost looks a lot like this right here. Pulls back, and you get the support, and you get a little bullish bar. And so we're probably going to push up again just like we did right here. And that's what happens. And then we correct, come back. If this would have been a little more bullish, it comes back first entry, then second entry. I don't like that trend. I don't like that negative bar. There's a little bit of a trend line there, but this is more of a range at this point. So, but notice we get a break above that trend line, close outside, then we make a new low, and we break below here, and end up with a fairly bullish bar, so you can get long right at the lows. So you got plenty of room to get out, even if it turns down right here, which it does. Notice it comes back, then it pushes higher again. So you wouldn't have got a runner on that one because of that bar right there. You would have scapped out and it would have come back if you move your stop to break even. And that's another thing I tell people. People ask me, it's so hard to get a runner. Well, if you're going to move it to break even or break even plus 1, it makes it even harder. But what you might do if you really like to swing, it all depends on personality. And that's the reason I do not talk a lot about exiting, and I talk more about entering, because your personality depends on how you want to exit, and it plays a great part in it. Me, I can't stand to watch prices move up here and have all that profit and then watch it back up all the way back again, even though it still went higher. And so if you've got the personality and the fortitude to stick that out and watch it come back, knowing that it's probably going to bounce again and go higher and you won't have to enter again, then that's what you need to do. But me, I can't stand it. I'll just be honest with you. When I see it up here making profit, I'd rather exit and look for a new entry. And that's just me, though. So you got to play your own personality. So what you might do is let this, to catch a runner, is use your actual scalp profits to give you a little more room. So you may not move to break even. You may leave your stop down here where it was, and that way if you're wrong and it turns lower, then all you lose is, you don't lose a whole lot. You lose your profit, and you might lose another tick or two, or you may break even on the whole trade. So that's another way to improve your runners, but you're going to want to try that when the prices are trending, not when they're going sideways. Or again, if it's like I talked about at the beginning, if there's a break, this would be a place you might try to give it a few extra ticks. Because if you had it came back and it only went as low as this bar right here, it made a little 2-bar matching low. So if you'd have given this your scalp profit, your stop would, and left your stop down way down here, or even just moved it up a couple of ticks, you would have survived that, even that right there, and you could have ridden that all the way out. So think about that and what works for you and what you feel comfortable doing. Me, I just can't do it. I can't stand to. There's nothing worse than watching prices put 2 or 3 or 4 points of profit in your can and then watching it back up and just all evaporate. For whatever reason, that drives me nuts. And I would rather take my profit and then find another entry. Now, understand that I like to do that because I'm pretty good at picking the entries. That's my forte. Where some people may struggle to get a good entry. So if you get a good one, you want to kind of hang on to it, so to speak. So if that's your personality, and you doesn't drive you nuts to watch it back up and go back to zero again before it goes higher, then trade it that way. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, I like this one. There was a second entry here, like I said, but you got your break here and a move, and this is just a failed break lower and gives you a chance to get long at the low. Plus, you not only do you have the support of the range, you've got the trend line behind it, so it's like a little double whammy there. You got a little extra support. So the fact that it's holding means we're probably going to bounce again, at least go back and test this, but it actually pushes higher, pulls back, and gets a little more momentum and takes off. This one was tempting, but that's a big bar. It didn't close quite on its high. It's a first entry, so I think you want to wait. But notice what happens. It runs up, pulls back, gives you a first entry, runs up, pulls back, gives you a second entry. Short that fails. Nice bullish bar. I liked this trade. This was a pretty good trade. Go long right there. And notice when it came back, it would not have gotten your break-even stop. So you could have ridden it. It didn't keep going forever, but this one would not have got your break-even stop here. And this is one that you could have moved your stop to break-even on your runners. And just curious what you, let's just say you entered at 33.50 and it runs up. When it probably turned back down right here, or maybe even here, one tick below that would have given you an extra point on your run. You would have got 2 points on your runners, but if you waited for this one on the after you got 2 legs up, which is probably the more realistic one, then you got 35.75. What was the entry down here? So you would have got over 2 points right there, almost 3 points, I think, if I added that right, doing my quick math, which I'm not very good at. So that just gives you some examples. But anyway, notice you made a lower low here. You move up, first entry, pull back second entry, and look at all those matching lows. That's a second entry long. You would have liked it better if it breaks lower, but the market's been pretty strong, so I like that. You got plenty of room to get out. You may not could have caught this one just simply because notice how it gaps over and takes off. You may not have been able to get in that one, but I like it when it broke above that green one there. I would have liked it better if it broke lower and bounced right off the EMA, but this has been a fairly strong, and and you're looking for that measured move, and we're not there yet. So once you start getting up here, you're getting so close to a measured move, I probably wouldn't enter anymore. Plus, it's not a very good setup either. That's a real neutral bar. And notice it pushes higher and then it sells off. That's kind of what it does. People will sit here and watch this go higher and higher, and finally they'll say, I'm getting in the next time, and they get in right here, and this is what happens to them. So that's why you got to follow the rules. The best setups are always going to be off the key entry points, which are the trend line, the flat, horizontal support and resistance lines, and then the EMA. Up here, you're too far away from you're really starting to get away here, and up here now that's 2 swings away from it. And the longer you stay away from it, the more likely you got a correction coming. Generally, you won't see a correction like that, but in this case, you did. And suddenly the market's going the other way. You would notice there is a close outside here. So you had to consider that as well. It's not real convincing, but you got to close outside and you got at least a couple legs up. So when it starts going the other way, there's no real surprise there because that's what it's supposed to do. That's what you expect it to do anyway. But anyway, you got a little trend line whirling down. Get a close outside, move to a new low. This one is very tempting. That's a failed second entry long, but it's right into these lows, and this is right back to this support resistance. We could have just been testing that again before it goes higher. So I'm still thinking possible long here, not short. But now you got to close outside and move it to a new low. Look how far away from the EMA you are. And you get a higher low right here that breaks lower first and goes out the other side. Being that far away from the EMA on a higher low after this little trend's played out, when we may be looking for another move up, I like going long right there. Because generally what will happen is even if it's going lower, it'll come back and get right around the EMA and turn down again. In this case, it actually went on through a couple of times before it turned back down. But it turns out the trend line's over here. First you draw it here, and then it went through, you draw it off this one, and that turns out to be the trend line. So notice that it closes outside, it comes back, makes a new high, and then it makes a lower high right here. And this one was kind of interesting. This one actually, let me explain this one. You got this swing here, and you're coming up, and I'd call that this is really a second entry right here. Counting off this is basically a double bottom. So you're coming up first entry, then you're coming up, and it looks like it's going to be a second entry. It turns up, and then it turns up one more time and fails and comes down. So the way I was looking at this was first entry and then second entry, counting off the highs, and that being a failure. I would have liked this better if it went on out this side. It broke higher first. And I would have liked it better, but when it broke lower here, I still liked this trade just simply because it confirmed that trend line. And then there's another entry right here that the only reason this one is green because now you got this is a new high, first entry, second entry. This is like a little reversal pattern telling you, hey, we're fixing to go lower again. But the reason this one is green is because it's right into these lows across there. There's strong support right across there. Notice it didn't matter now. Now most people realize we're making lower lows and lower highs, and look how bearish that bar is. So I did give it a green one, and look at it go. That's a good trade. And then we just went sideways. It's kind of a shame that we didn't get another setup down here so you could ride this last leg down, but it just never really came. And look, another thing too is look at this little trend. Close outside, move to a new low. This is almost a repeat pattern. You didn't get that little third put. Actually, you did. It's not the same as this one, but you don't really get a signal bar here or anything. So, but this whole setup here looks just like this. It's a repeat pattern, and it's actually broke higher first and then turned down. I didn't mark it because we're way away from the EMA, and it looks like we probably just had an overshoot. You might could still say that's the trend channel at that point right there, but we ended up overshooting that one too before it's over. But I really generally when you find these swings, it's going to be above the one of your previous ones, like that right there. See how that's above, and it really fits best right there. It looks like we got an overshoot and more overshoot, so I think that's correct right there in my opinion. And you could say, well, hey, maybe it's a little bit steeper, and that's a possibility too. But either way, if you do that, then you would have had a break over here and a new low. So, but also I would look for a measured move here from right here. And notice we got that pretty much when it was trying to bounce here. And that's why it was probably trying to bounce here, but there was still so much selling, we couldn't even get back to the trend line. It's just going along sideways and then hit the EMA and boom, off it goes. But yeah, it's disappointing that we really didn't have a better setup here. This one's tempting, but there's not enough room to get out right here. So, but this is one you could have marked it possibly green here. I didn't mark it because I think it's too risky, but I'll go ahead and mark it green. If you notice that it's like a repeat pattern here, and notice it went just about the same distance lower, maybe not quite as far, but it looks very similar. And then this bounce right here is almost a repeat of this bounce, so I marked it green as well. When it went lower and then turned, and when it went through here, you had enough room to get out. But with an overshoot, we could keep going higher. This is where you might catch one of those important lows. It's not a failed break lower, but it still might be an important low. And guess what? That's the low of the day from then on. And that is a nice move. So if you catch that, you would have had an easy runner there. Oops. You would have had an easy runner there, and you could have ridden that on up. So notice it comes back again here, but it's right into that trend line. But it basically makes a little double bottom, and this you could call this a new low, and then it tries to come back to the trend line once, comes back to the trend line twice, and gives you a, it's basically going to be a little short trap right there. So I like going long right there. And it's really, you could really treat that like a failed second entry short. Notice that's like a little double bottom right there, first entry, second entry, but it's like two legs up almost there. But I like that one. You don't know that it's going to take off like that, but you figure we're probably going to push a little higher there, and man, it takes off, and that's probably one of the trade of that. That's definitely the trade of the afternoon, and you would have easily had a runner there, and then you come up and you overshoot this, and so you expect a break, and you get it here, but you never really get a close outside here in a new low. It's trying to, and it goes in the 2 o'clock hour. This might have been one you took long, because notice that low, and there's a first entry. Actually, on the failed second entry would be right there, and you would have got burned on that. So, but when it tried to go lower again, if it wasn't after 2 o'clock, I'd say you may take that trade right there. That's a nice bullish bar right there too. So anyway, that's what I saw today. Not a lot of trades, but there were some. It was a little easier to read. It wasn't quite as difficult today. This is where most people get tripped up on the reversal. But once you get a confirmed trend line working in the other direction and it's going down, you got to go with it. Just forget that we didn't get a retest here. We probably did, because there is a close outside. It's just not a very convincing one, so it's hard to know. I mean, generally that may not be enough to reverse the market, but in this case it did. So there is a close outside and move to a new high, and then we get a correction, and then we're heading off again. You can see that. And I would have probably measured this whole leg over here, and it's obvious you're probably not going to have time for that. This thing would have to really take off, but I would measure that and bring this over and look for a possible measured move, which would be way up here. And we may end up pushing up there before it's over, but this is into the next day, so it doesn't really matter. We don't care about that anymore. But anyway, not a bad trading day. Not a lot of trades, but it was a little bit more clear cut than some of the trading days we've had recently. So Trump speaks tonight, but you shouldn't be trading at 8 o'clock during the overnight anyway, so no big deal. Be interested to see what he's got to say tonight, but may create some fireworks for tomorrow, so we'll see. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. And remember, tomorrow's probably going to wrap up our week, because I have my doctor's appointment on Thursday, so we're going to wrap it up on Wednesday this week. But I'm done for today. I'll see you tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.